Decluttering your house is a marathon, not a sprint. Literally. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times, but every time I hear that, I think to myself, no, it's not. I know how to run a marathon. I've done it, and I've never been able to declutter my house. Hi, this is Ruth from Unslabify, where I try to unslabify my whole life, especially my house. And today I have a very exciting announcement. I have decided that this year I am going to run a literal marathon in order to apply the principles that I learned from my marathon training to decluttering and de-hoarding and unslabifying my home. And I can't wait to get started. But don't worry, this is not going to turn into just another YouTube fitness channel, because there are plenty of those out there and people who are doing it way better than I am. The focus for this channel is going to remain de-hoarding my house and unslabifying my life, and just using the principles that I learned while I train for my marathon to catapult that to a type of success, because I love the sense of victory that I felt in the past when I was successful running a marathon, and I want that really bad with my house. Back in 2014, I decided to change my life. I lost 30 pounds and I ran several marathons, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But just like any habit that can fall apart without staying diligent, I have become deconditioned. And I have a lot of things that I've suddenly realized are in common between my running experience and my decluttering experience. I am in a position of being completely deconditioned and starting from the ground up with my running, especially because I've just had to take a month and a half off because of my broken toe. But I know that I've had previous successes. I'm now finding myself in the same exact position with my house, where I am riding high in many ways still on the successes of my previous house that I just sold after decluttering it, even though it was completely hoarded. And now I have to face the house where I'm living. And when I look around me here, I realize my victories 2 months ago at the other house haven't translated to victories for me today. My current house is completely deconditioned, just like I am physically. So I've made a decision. This is the year I'm going to have my comeback. I'm going to use the lessons that I've used in the past to be able to run another marathon. But more importantly, I'm going to use some of those techniques and lessons and apply them to decluttering and de-hoarding my house. I'm going to be signing up for a fall marathon, and I'm going to be using the same tools to do both at the same time. So the first principle that I'm going to apply to de-hoarding my house that I've learned from marathon training is that you have to be honest with yourself about where you are. You have to start where you are. And where I am with my marathon training is that 7 years ago, I ran a couple marathons. But 7 years ago is a really long time. And since that time, I've grown 7 years older. I've become nearly completely deconditioned, and I've lost pretty much all the gains that I made. And you may say to yourself, well, yeah, but you've run marathons in the past. And it is true that I have run marathons in the past, but I needed to find something that I'd been successful at in the past in order to apply those principles to something that I've never been successful at, and that is uncluttering my house. If I am completely honest, I would tell you that there's literally never been a time in my life, even when I was a child, that my own spaces were uncluttered, de-hoarded, and I had a sense of victory. 7 years ago, when I was a marathon runner, I felt a great sense of accomplishment and a great sense of victory because I had never been an athlete before. Unlike many of the people that I meet in the running community, I was not a high school athlete. On the contrary, I have been a couch potato my whole life. And I was a musician, and I loved art, I was artistic and creative, but I was anything but an athlete. In fact, my mother is a personal trainer, and I was nothing like her. And she did a lot to try to get me motivated and to get me exercising and to get me healthy, but she was rarely successful because I really had no interest. Working out was hard. It made me sweaty. I just didn't like it. But about 7 or 8 years ago, I found myself in a position where I knew I needed to change something in my life. I needed to change a number of things in my life. I found myself suddenly the single mother of 4 young children who were about 1, 3, 5, and 7. They might have been 2, 4, 6, and 8 or something like that. But they were very young, and I had lost confidence in myself. I had gained a lot of weight. I didn't feel sure of my direction, and I felt powerless in many ways. And I made sort of a snap decision to run a marathon. And I had never even run a half marathon. I'm not sure I'd ever run a 10K. I think I'd attempted a 5K and sort of walked through most of it. But during that year of training, I learned so much about myself. And over the next 1 or 2 years, I felt a sense of being capable and victorious in ways that I had never felt before. But like many things that require a lot of maintenance to keep up a certain level of fitness, whether it's physical fitness or clutter fitness or mental fitness, slowly some of that motivation to just stick with it faded. And over time, I've put back on a lot of the weight. I've lost my conditioning. And so really, today's lesson for me as I start this journey again is to be honest with myself about where I am and to realize that I am basically starting from zero. And so I went out today and I laced up my shoes and I got out here and I am doing a lot of walking and some running. And I thought I would come out for about 30 minutes. And at the end of my 30 minutes, I was very disappointed with how far I'd made it. But I decided that I need to be okay with that and start with where I am. And I need to do the same thing in my house. I have a lot in common between my running history and my house history, because right now in my house and my dehoarding, I'm coming off of feeling extremely victorious and very happy with my previous performance. But what I've had to realize is that previous performance in my other house doesn't actually carry over to today. Because it doesn't matter what I did yesterday or last week or 7 years ago. It really matters what I'm doing today. And so that's where I have to start. The house that I live in now really suffered while I got the other house sold and ready and dehoarded. And so now I really have to pay the piper here at this house and just start where I am. I'm going to do a project today where I go through my spatulas. It's kind of a baby steps project, and I've recognized that I have way too many spatulas. I have one of the world's smallest kitchens with literally one kitchen drawer. That's right, there's just one drawer where I have to keep all of my silverware and nothing else. There's no room for anything else. And I'm going to be getting rid of at least 2/3 of my spatulas. Now, because I struggle with hoarding, I may not be ready to immediately donate all those. Emotionally, that may be hard for me. I'm going to make myself throw out any that are broken or melted. I'm going to donate any that I feel that I can, and the ones that I feel like I'm not ready to let go of yet, I'm going to package them up in a box that's for later. I'm going to follow the advice of Dawn from The Minimal Mom, where she says, just pack stuff up and see if you miss it. And if you don't miss it, make sure that it's in a donatable donation bin, and then you can just let it go. Label it and say kitchen items haven't been used, and let it go later. Okay, so part of being honest with myself and starting where I'm at means that the rest of my kitchen's not completely clean, but I washed all my dishes in the dishwasher last night. We now have some breakfast dishes that are out, but I washed all my dishes so that I could get all my spatulas and big utensils and everything all clean and ready, because I came to realize that I have way too many in this little kitchen. And because I only have one kitchen drawer over here, I have to hold all of my spatulas and stuff like that in a holder like this or something like that. That's what I happen to have. And all of these do not fit in here. And so I'm gonna go through and just pick out my favorites. I'm going to apply the technique that Dana from A Slob Comes Clean uses. She did a video recently where she picked just her favorite pens and said, this is the container that I have. I'm gonna use Dana's container concept and say, starting with spatulas is where I'm at right now. That's about as far as I can get today. I have other stuff to do, so I'm gonna pick out my favorites here. And I'll probably start mostly with, right away with the ones that were in the dishwasher, because the ones in the dishwasher are the ones that I've just been using, so those are the ones that I'm reaching for. And I've spread all the rest of them out here on my counter. So what I realized is that this is a container of the type of utensils that I use on a regular basis. I use plastic spoons, I use spatulas almost every day to make my kids food. I use tongs. I may already have too much in here. I'm gonna have to take a good look and maybe be honest with myself and take out 1 or 2 more items. I then found 3 items that don't really fit in there, and I don't use them every day, but I'm not ready to get rid of them. That's this sort of little zester. It's not quite a micro cleaner, but it's my zester. I have 1 whisk. I started out with 3 whisks, and I realized that I love these ones. They're great, but if I only want to keep 1 whisk, then I need the one that's coated, because I often am stirring in my Teflon or nonstick pans. And I actually do use this turkey baster more often than you'd think for basting various things and even other like weird little jobs around the kitchen. So I've used this just recently. The rest of these things I'm ready to box up. This includes some knives that I've never enjoyed using. I just don't like the way they cut. There's nothing wrong with them. I just don't prefer them. I don't reach for them. And some spatulas that are basically duplicates. And I had 2 of these, and I had 3 pairs of tongs. Definitely don't need 3 pairs of tongs. Again, I chose the 1 pair that is coated so that I can take things out of a nonstick pan. And I'm gonna decide where these items that are less frequently used should go. I'm gonna try to maybe find a place to put them on a shelf. I don't think they necessarily need to have prime place right here on my countertop. And then everything else here on the counter, I'm gonna let it go. So today, my job was to be honest with myself, start where I am, even in the middle of a dirty kitchen, even if the job seems like a really small one, and to just go from there and to build up my decluttering muscles as I go. And I'm gonna be doing the same thing in my marathon training and figuring out how to merge the lessons that I'm learning from each to help me with both. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel a lot, and I hope that you'll follow along with me on this journey. And I hope that you'll also find a way to participate, whether that's doing a marathon decluttering or de-hoarding of your house, or maybe even doing some physical running with me. You could choose a 5K distance, a 10K, a half marathon, or maybe you want to be completely crazy and run a marathon with me this fall. Some of the tools that I'm going to use will be applicable for both. I'm so excited. Stick with me on this journey and we'll see what happens.